Having been a financial advisor for over 20 years, I've worked with or become friends with hundreds of millionaires and even a few billionaires. And in today's video, I want to share with you 8 habits of what I call quiet millionaires. And the first one is they're understated. They're understated on social media and they're understated in how they dress. I have a friend that's a billionaire, and he actually pays a PR agent to keep him out of the press. He doesn't want to be in the press. Um, and he's very likely to be the most casually dressed at any big event where many people might be wearing tuxedos and suits. He might be wearing a sports coat with a button-down shirt. And oftentimes that's a sign that somebody might have more money than you initially think when they're very comfortable, not having to impress, not having to, wear a tie, and just, it's a little bit of a power symbol that you can be casual. So that's the first thing. Think of people like Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, right? They would do keynote speeches where, literally tens of millions of people were watching. And, they'd be in blue jeans and in Jobs' case, a black turtleneck shirt, and in Zuck's case, a hoodie. So they're often understated both on social media and in clothing. The next thing is, I think they're really careful. They understand their upbringing is what allowed them to be successful in life. And they struggle because they want to be able to provide a similar background for their children, but yet the reality is their children's journey is very different than theirs were. So they spend a lot of time thinking about, how do I use this money in a way that gives my kids the tools that they need, but it doesn't give them the money. So it gives them the tools so that they can make their own living versus giving them a situation where they never have to work. Because as much as none of us like to wake up when the alarm goes off and do a half-hour commute back and forth to work, there's a lot of good that comes from that sense of purpose, that sense of working hard, that sense of accomplishment. Um, the next thing is they tend not to talk much about money. If you're in a social setting and you don't know who they are and you ask what they do for a living, they might tell you that, they work in technology. They might not tell you that, they were the founder of this company, and that they're going to be understated, and they're probably going to turn the tables very quickly and ask you what you do. So they tend to be understated, and they tend not to like to talk about money. They're also very focused on their health and their time, right? They have plenty of money. So the two important things that they can't control is how much time they have left in their health. And obviously those two are correlated. And we're going to get to the relationship side a little bit later because that's also important to them. But on the health and time, I want you to think of, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Mark Zuckerberg lately, but, he's pretty built. Jeff Bezos, he's pretty built as well. And I think the best example of this is just somebody like Tom Cruise, who does all of his own stunts. And has an incredible physique at my age. Tom Cruise and I are about the same age. Tom is holding up a lot better than I am. But, you cannot buy a physique like that. Again, Bezos has a good physique. Tom Cruise has an amazing physique. You buy that with two four-letter words. The first four-letter word is work. Right, it's sweat, but sweat's a 5-letter word. So it's work in the gym, and the other 4-letter word is food, by making disciplined choices about how they eat. But their health is important to them, and you don't need to be a millionaire to do likewise, right? Jeff Bezos talks about he works out for a half hour or 45 minutes a day. Most of us can fit that in. If you can't fit in a half hour or 45 minutes, you fit in what you can. I try to work out pretty much every day. And some days that's a 1-hour workout, but you know what? Plenty of days that's a half-hour workout. So we don't have to be a millionaire to do many of these things. The next thing I want to talk about is there's a great book. It's by Thomas Corley, Corley, and it's called Rich Habits, where he talks about the differences of the habits that people have that allowed them to become millionaires. And he breaks people into 4 categories. And he says, either people became millionaires because, they were a big, what he calls a big company planner. They climbed the corporate ladder for a company like a Fortune 500 company. And that takes 20, 30, 40 years to do that. Or they're what the term Corley uses, they're a virtuoso. So somebody that's highly specialized and highly skilled in their craft. And by craft, he means like a surgeon, an attorney, something like that. The next category is an entrepreneur. I've talked a lot about entrepreneurs in this video. But then the fourth category is where I think the most of us are. And those, that category is we are the saver investors, right? So many of us have never made a ton of money, but we've been really good about saving the money that we have and spending the money on things that bring us joy. For instance, as I record this, you see these lush plants behind me. I'm in Costa Rica. So doing some traveling, but I tend to do travel on a pretty decent budget. I tend to be pretty good about my budget. So I wanted to bring in Corley's book because it talks about some of these aspects about millionaires. And another one is, that Corley talks about in his book. You know what the most common car is for a millionaire? It's a Toyota. And it's because, it's a practical car. It's not going to give you a maintenance headache. It's not crazy expensive, right? You can spend a lot of money on a Toyota, but it's actually, I believe, a Camry, not just a Toyota, but a Toyota Camry. So, so oftentimes millionaires don't like to spend a lot of money on a flashy car, right? We think millionaire, we think Porsche, we think Lamborghini, we think Mercedes-Benz, BMW. But again, think Toyota Camry. So, many millionaires got that way because they don't like having car payments. Okay, what's the next one? Number 7 is they're willing to pay for good advice. When we retire, one of our largest expenses is going to be our taxes. And millionaires realize that, what, in order to minimize, pay everything I'm legally required to, but no more, in order to plan for that appropriately and fill out the two lowest tax brackets, the 10%, the 12%, but try to stay out of the next couple categories, that 22% and above. There is no 14, 16, 18, it goes from 12 to 22. Many people realize that by spending a few $1,000s with an accountant, they can save tens of thousands of dollars or more. Same thing with an accountant, and mea culpa, same thing with a financial advisor. When you start to build your net worth, the cost of a 10% mistake increases dramatically. So most financial advisors charge about 1% of the assets under management. And I've had a number of people in the comments say, "Hey, Azul, how do financial advisors justify that?" And just think, 10% mistake with your portfolio. First off, if you're at $500,000, a 10% mistake, that's $50,000. A 20% mistake is $100,000. $1 million, it's obviously a 10% mistake is $100,000. So 10% mistake pays for 10 years of working with a financial advisor that takes care of all the other stuff for you as well. Enough said there. And then the next one and the last one is a willingness to buy back their time, not just by working with professionals, but by having other people do things for them. So it's about making great decisions. And one of the big decisions is when you retire. It's why I made this video here, why waiting to 65 to retire might be a big mistake.